Okay, that's all embedded in it. Thanks.
Nasser,
Yeah.
you starting?
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to be hosting this event and the launch of the Bookshield website. Firstly, I'd like to ask Samah to do our acknowledgement of country. Welcome, Samah.
Hi, Nasser. Hi, everybody. Today we celebrate the role of art to guide us, to remind us, and to help us find hope. But first, we'd like to pay respect and thanks to the custodians of this ancient land that has embraced us, the land of dreamtime, stories, and songs. As Palestinians around the world commemorate today 72 years of Nakba, 72 years of loss and dispossession, of colonization and resistance, we are mindful that we live on stolen land that has never been ceded. So allow me to indulge and to share my own personal acknowledgement to country. I would like to acknowledge the original owners of this land we live upon and the original owners of the land where we come from. The Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and the Palestinian people under occupation. And to pay my respect to our elders, future, past, and present, who safeguard our history, the Hakawatis and weavers of dreamtime stories, forever embedded in our memory. And I would like to express my outrage for Black children in incarceration and Palestinian children in arbitrary detention and young lives stripped from worth because of their color and their religion. And I would like to acknowledge the women who carve life from the sacred earth and breathe into it indigenous pride, and the women across the sea in our homeland who give birth on the rubble of their homes, under the bombs, and in the crosshairs of snipers at checkpoints. And I would like to acknowledge the men who stand steadfast, dignified, their heads held high, unbent by oppression. And allow me to express my gratitude for those who resist the horrors of settler colonies and those who march with us for equality beyond the rhetorical apology and the meaningless sorry and the dazzling facade of Western civility. I come from colonized land, and I stand on colonized land. And right here, I pay my respects to all freedom fighters, past and present. Palestine will be free, and this land will forever be Aboriginal.
Thank you so much, Samah. A truly moving and powerful acknowledgement of country, and I too like to echo those thoughts. Thank you so very much. Just a matter of housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again so much for joining us. We actually had a third Palestinian woman joining us, Sarah Saleh, a spoken word artist. Unfortunately, she's not been able to join us. She's had a tragedy in her family, and she wishes us well, and our thoughts and prayers go to her and her family. Samah, there's so many parallels between your acknowledgement of country and the situation for Palestinians and the reality of the colonization of Australia, the myth of Terra Nullius, and the parallels between that and a land without people for a people without land. And as Palestinians, we understand truly the concept of a loss of space, of our land, of culture. And it's serendipitous. Today is May 15, which for Palestinians is termed the Nakba, the catastrophe. It's on this day that Palestinians the world over mourn the loss of Palestine. It's the date of the creation of the State of Israel. And Israel was created, something was lost, and that was Palestine. In the weeks and months preceding this date and the year following this date in 1948, Palestine was ethnically cleansed of some 800,000 Palestinians. Many of those Palestinians fleeing massacres, devastation, horrors, and so many at the end of a rifle. So many of those Palestinians left with a bookje, a sack, whatever they could muster up in a quick, hurried moment to carry with them on their journey as they were torn from their homes. Today, over 7 million Palestinians live as refugees around the world. The vast majority of them unable to exercise their inalienable human right to return to their ancestral homelands. Crazily, some 6 million of them live within 100 kilometres, and something like 3 million live within a single day's walking distance with their Bookshe's ready to go home. Today, as we celebrate the launching of Bookshe's new website, I'd like to remember those people and their pain. I'm very excited to be introducing you to two wonderful Palestinian women. Asil Taya is an important voice in the Australian cultural landscape. As a Palestinian artist and activist, Asil has been instrumental in using her cultural practice to shed light on the experiences of those living in war-torn countries and conditions. She is a fierce and compassionate advocate for humanity and for humans to deal with each other with dignity, kindness, and respect. Since arriving in Melbourne, Asil has been an unstoppable force in the cultural landscape. She has created numerous new works such as Bookshare and Lullabies Under the Stars, inviting communities into the experience of asylum seekers and refugees through deeply personal and transformational multi-art engagement. Asil shows an unparalleled commitment to her craft. She eats, sleeps, and breathes community arts and cultural development practice as a life force, not only for her, but for the vulnerable communities she engages and supports. We're also joined by Samah Sabawi, who's a multi-award-winning playwright, poet, and author. Her recently acclaimed play, Them, won a Green Award for Best Writing. She was shortlisted for the prestigious Nick Enright Prize for Playwriting, the Victorian Premier Literary Awards, and was selected for the Victorian Certificate of Education playlist. Them was also nominated by the Green Room Awards for Best Independent Production, Best Direction, and Best Ensemble. Samah wrote and co-produced Tales of a City by the Sea, a play that has had more than 100 performances around the world, won 2 Drama Victoria Awards, was nominated for the Green Room Awards for Best Independent Production, and was also selected for the Victorian Certificate of Education Drama Playlist. Samah is a co-editor of Double Exposure, Plays of the Jewish and Palestinian Diasporas, winner of Canada's Patrick O'Neill Award, and is co-author of I Remember My Name, winner of the Palestine Book Award. Samah has recently completed her doctoral thesis, Inheriting Exile, Transgenerational Trauma and Palestinian Australian Identity at Victoria University. She is currently putting her final touches on her debut novel, and beginning next week, she will be a virtual writer in residence for Melbourne University's Union House Theatre. A real pleasure to have you both with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. Asil, I'm going to start with you. We're launching today the Bookshare website. I know we're using Northern Hemisphere time, but can you take us through the genesis of your idea? How did Bookshare come about?
Bookshare came about of the memories of me growing up as a child and gathering my friends and family in the 15th of May and walking the walk to talk about our stories, our pain, and those that we don't know personally, but that have left Palestine. We sing for them every time, as we know them, as we live their own experiences, and hoping for them and for us to be able to see them again on a free Palestine. And coming to Melbourne, I've seen so many people and so many faces and different shapes and colors and cultures and languages. And I was sure that on a land of the First Nation people, there's lots of people that are living and have their own bookjays coming to Australia, starting from the very first time people landed on this land as settlers until this moment, recently with the Palestinian, with the Syrians, Yemeni, like all that's happening around the world and the new refugees. I thought there is a lot more to ask and to give to this land, and to share the beauty of the diversity and the stories these people are bringing to this country, and to acknowledge, to stop kind of this assumptions and behaviors that's happening when people are treating the newcomers as strangers when they also were new to Australia. So in a way, and they are not the First Nation, and they are not the owners of this land. So just to acknowledge the fact that everybody has his book day when he came to Australia, and to kind of check what is happening within the book days, within the journeys and the homes of those people, and to share these kind of experiences with the wider Australia, those that have not really experienced displacement themselves, but someone in their family have decided to have changed his home, or were forced to change his home. So
Asil, I've seen the production. Tell the audience who might not have seen it, how you express it using your art.
Maybe we can ask Elliot to share a video of like short video. You can see the rest of it on the website soon, and on my own website, asiltaher.com. But maybe we can share like 4 minutes just to give an idea of how we do that.
Thank you, Asil. Thanks, Elliot.
Means to us, and what makes us feel at home.
I created Book Day to empower people who might feel out of the conversation about the reasons and impacts of global migration because they don't know the right question to ask, or due to fear of saying the wrong thing. Book Day initiates a truly meaningful and personal connections between those who have been forced to leave their home and those who have not experienced so.
This process of disconnection from your land always brings a bit of sorrow, a bit sadness, a bit confusion, but at the same time, some genuine hope that we bring into that as well. So that's a piece of joy, that's a piece of freedom, that's a piece of like, okay, it is quite dark and bitter, but sometimes we also add a bit of sugar. It can be a quite dark show in that case, like it can be really heavy. And because of the stories that we're sharing, and probably it depends on the audience, if you have connection directly with that story, that can be quite a trigger for something. But at the same time, we want to provide this other space of, okay, we are here, we're in the tent, it is a safe space, nothing is going on. Let's breathe here, and let's allow to have a bit more space into our life where we can say, okay, I'm holding this, but maybe I can find another way to carry that on.
I came here when I was 11. What I'm bringing to the project is poetry, or more pain. Pain that I haven't spoken about for 30 years. There are so many wars and displacements around. We may not be able to do much about it, but the least we can do is understand. I realized how unhealthy it was not to speak. So to me, this project is a healer.
My land, and snakes is my home. Black skin, let's choose, and equal I find comfort in the moments shared with human beings. But is distracted or alerted. It is humanity I choose for the sake of my still heart and all the sacrifices made today. For the sake of the mercy, the loving one that leads my way, so
in different cultures, it is an interesting thing that is already happening, but in a sort of layer of multiculturality. Don't necessarily mix, so that's when we jump into interculturality, the relation.
What sort of message or what sort of advice would you give to someone who time?
The point about this, the reason why I'm on this show particularly is because I'm representing First Nation people, and people tend to forget that even though we're from Australia, we actually were displaced in our country. So any of the neighbouring tribes around us, we will place into these particular groups after going through these massacres, hence why I have those zones of the day. I guess this work is something that I find will resonate with each individual that comes and sees stuff for the last 250 years, roughly, we've had came through, and we had to assimilate to Western construct. So I can
Thanks, Elliot. Apologies to everyone in this post-COVID world. Obviously, the demands of the internet that we should have had haven't been able to cope. Sorry, Asil, that we weren't able to deliver the video as it should have been, but our people watching later and the participants can go to asiltaya.org to see your website, and then the Bookshare website will be up at midnight tonight.
Asiltaya.com.
Asil.com.au. Now, Asil, you've performed it all over Victoria. How has it been received? How has the interaction been with the public?
It was amazing. It's first for the artists to be able to sing first in their own language and to speak in their own language other than English everywhere was a great start and success. But also to hear, for example, we went to Shepparton, and one of the Afghan ladies that joined the teams, that joined the audience said, my dad has told me his story, but I have lived it today, and I'm sure, like me, everybody will go home and just like deeply think about what has been going for them and how does that affect them personally and their own stories. So it's like for me to hear the audience coming and people leaving the space crying or like emotional. I remember when you came to see Bookshare at the Immigration Museum and how strong and powerful it was for you, and for everybody that have joined. People acknowledge the importance of talking about it. And the last maybe part that was also cutting is Siramsa, one of the First Nation artists, that said how important it is for him to be part of this, and how as a displaced person within his own country, the pain that he's sharing. And he starts the whole performance with the massacres that happened for his people, and kind of using stones as the powerful kind of way of hiding them within the sand, hoping or thinking that he might forget, and acknowledge the fact that it's not. And we cannot talk about the future without, healing the past. So it has been amazing. Like just this June, we will be working in 3 different councils around Victoria, in Shepparton, in Whittlesea, Durban, and Kingston, which is just showing the need for councils and for people to be able to work with the stories and the communities and the children to kind of tell them their stories that no one has told before.
It's fantastic that you've created a medium there, Asil, to allow those stories to be told. Over to you, Samah. Thanks so much for sitting so patiently. Art can be used as an expression of resistance, and Palestinians, you included, as Asil does, tell our stories those ways. I remember when you first asked me to come and participate in Tales and come to the first showing, just how overwhelmed I was at the actual performance without realizing the body of work that has to go into getting it to that point, layered with the challenge of being a Palestinian in Australia. Can you take me through, or take all of us through, the genesis through to delivery?
Sure. I just want to first of all say I also went and saw Bookshare, and I think it's an incredible piece of art. I highly recommend for people to support it and to be there for Asil. The reality is 37,000 people every day are being forced out of their homes. This is a UN figure, 37,000 people. And so art like this, like Bookshare and like the plays that I put on, the power of these works is that they tell stories, and stories are powerful, but they don't just tell you a story. They ignite hope and they ignite empathy. And we need empathy and hope to take action. And so I salute Asil for her amazing work. And I also want to thank her for lending me her voice in Tales of a City by the Sea. And I guess this is a segue for me now to go on to talk about Tales. But the genesis for Tales was the need to tell an important story in order to not just share with the world what is happening in my home city, Gaza, but to also try to make people, when they come to watch it, realize that it could be them. It could be any one of us. Humanity is full of stories. And I want to quote Mahmoud Darwish here, who wrote that whoever writes his story will inherit the land of words. And words are very powerful. And so that's the reason I wrote Tales. And it was a very long journey. The first draft was written in 2010. And it's gone through so many processes. But the sad reality of art being a privilege, and I stand in a place of privilege, being in Australia, as difficult as it is for women of color, for women, and for Palestinians to tell their stories, we still at least have a chance at doing that. The play that was written about Gaza, for Gaza, has never been staged to this day in Gaza. And when we attempted to stage it in 2014, we went through so many problems, but the biggest one was that bombs started falling. Israel bombed Gaza as we were casting in Gaza at the time, and we lost people in our production team. The theater in Gaza was bombed later on, and so it continues to be a challenge. So I feel that it's our duty as artists who have this kind of privilege, who are able to tell the stories, to use this unique skill that they have to tell the world what is happening.
Yeah, it's so sad. We remember 2014, and the reality, you spoke about that privilege, and even with the privilege we have here in Australia, there is still those layers. A, funding, B, a story that is perhaps not palatable to a as wide a demographic as we might need.
But I think with what is palatable and what is not, I really take issue with that, because I find, and I know it's not with you, Nasser, because I know you're just asking the question. But I take issue with that, but because I find that theaters often underestimate the intelligence of audiences. And so big theaters race to put on stage what they think is palatable, and they get to make this judgment. And I think in doing that, they underestimate the intelligence and the craving and the hunger of audiences to see something that is not the everyday that they see in these big stages. And I've had this experience with both Tales of a City by the Sea, which I had to self-produce and self-fund and rely on good people like you, Nasser, and Asil, and a community of friends to raise funds so that I can put it on. But because I was told that no theater would produce it because it's not commercially viable. 100 performances later around the world, I would beg to differ. I had the same issue with them. Thank God for La Mama Theatre, and a big shout out to La Mama for not just having faith in my work, but in having faith in women writers, in Indigenous writers, in marginalized voices, and for giving them a platform. And I think the bigger theater stages can learn a thing or two from La Mama.
Fantastic. Yeah, huge shout out to our friends there at La Mama. Samah, I'm going to come back to you in a second to share some of your writings, but over to Asil, and before we're going to throw to a song in a second, Asil. This being Nakba Day, for Palestinians, the key is a symbol of return. Many Palestinians today sleep with their key under their pillows. I've got a dear friend, Tara, who lives in Palestine, in Jerusalem, and he helps facilitate third and fourth generation Palestinians returning to their homes. Now, they can return to their homes purely as visitors, and it's amazing that these third and fourth generations can say, okay, we've got to go to the well, right? If I take 15 steps this way, there should be a big olive tree. Turn right, there's where the ruins of the old church were. My house is 5 more steps. And that story that's shared generationally through, many years later, 72 years now since Nakba, symbolized by the key. Can you talk about some of your work that you've done around that?
Yeah, through my study and while I was at uni as well, being the only Palestinian in an Israeli at college was not easy, and to kind of survive and keep my identity within my work, I created a house, like using wires and just like using metal wires to kind of create a house, the old houses, the blocks houses, and I hanged keys hanging from it. And through also my practice, I have interviewed lots of people that still live within Palestine, but displaced within their own home country. And I have gathered together with historians lots of keys, actual keys, which I felt so privileged to be able to hold and photograph, that were gathered from unfortunately dying elderly in the community that wanted those keys to be kept and celebrated and memorized all the time. So as you said, yes, keys are really a main thing. And like every time, even my 3-year-old daughter has been given a bear, like teddy bear, and that has a key. I said, Rima, look, like they also have a key of return. And we just relate always the keys and teach our children that we always have to carry those keys and not let go of them. So yeah.
So Asil, get ready for your song. Samah, before you read some poetry, I want to see if you can link it somehow. One of the realities in this COVID world that we're dealing in today, and I saw a post from a friend in Gaza, and it was, shared all over the world, and it was, "Dear world, your today is Gaza's everyday." Yeah, 15 years of brutal military siege, air, land, sea blockade. You can only get in and out what the Israeli authorities will allow. It's personal to you as a Gazan, but you spoke about our privilege. Can you speak about that and how that might perhaps bring a new play?
Well, there's always a new play on the horizon, Nasser. Look, it's an understatement, to be honest. People are sitting in their homes, and I sympathize and I understand, and I'm also stuck at home in COVID-19 reality. But I can get food, I can get access to medical help. I am not at fear of having bombs falling from the sky. I'm not at fear of having my child kidnapped from my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and put in a military prison. So it is an understatement, but I get the gist of saying that you're complaining, that you're stuck at home. We've been imprisoned in what has been called the world's largest, biggest open air prison for over a decade. So that's what I would say about this. Can I just quickly check how much time do we still have? I thought we were till 12:30.
And we've got half an hour.
Okay, great.
We're Palestinian anyway. Just keep talking till they turn the microphone off.
Good. So did you want me to read a poem?
Yes, please.
All right. So this poem is from Tales of a City by the Sea. And I'm reading it because Asil requested that I read one of the poems that inspired the play Tales of a City by the Sea. And it speaks to the state of being locked up and under siege. I wrote this poem, a dedication to my husband, who during the 2009 bombing of Gaza felt like he was trapped outside the cage that is the Gaza open air prison. And he was very worried about his family, and they were our strength and they were our inspiration. So this poem is dedicated to my husband Munir and to his family in Gaza. It's called Defying the Universe. Are your loved ones trapped behind the wall? Do they need the army's permission for their prayers to reach the sky? For their love to cross the ocean and to touch your thirsty heart? Are your loved ones trapped? Do you yearn to be in your family home? And when you call them, do they always say, "We are well, alhamdulillah"? Does it surprise you that they are whole while you are broken? Must they always worry about you, urge you to have faith in your exile? Must they always pity you for not breathing the air of your ancestral land? Must they always comfort you even when the bombs are falling? Do you ever wonder who is walled in? Is it you or is it them? And when it finally dawns upon you that their dignity sets them free, do you feel ashamed of your liberty? Are your loved ones trapped behind the wall? Do they tell you stories of how they survive? The trees they've replanted, the homes they've rebuilt? Do they assure you that life still goes on? Old men fiddle with their prayer beads. Mothers still bake ma'moul on Eid. Families still gather under the canopies with loaded bunches of grapes dangling above their heads. They nibble on watermelon seeds and drink maramiya tea. Women still perfect the art of matchmaking. And men, they still talk of freedom and democracy. Children climb on the sycamore trees and lovers woo in secrecy. And no matter how the conditions are adverse, do your loved ones defy the universe? Your loved ones, they defy the universe.
Thanks so much, Sima. Thank you. Remembering everyone, we're here to celebrate the launching of the Bookshare website. In the chats, you can see the links to both Asil's website, asiltaya.com, but also to Bookshare. So be sure to save those hyperlinks so you can go along later on and check them out. Also, feel free to put some questions in that chat if you'd like me to ask a question. Asil, over to you and your beautiful voice.
Okay. I'm just also aware that we are like with them captioning people, so let's ask them how long we have after I finish the song. The song I'm singing is a song that I sang before in the Symposium for Art Front, and I love so much. And for everybody that knows Palestine and understand Arabic, I think we will share also the words in a minute. It's important for me to say, like, this is kind of how I feel. I feel home every time I sing it. أصبح عندي الآن بندقية إلى فلسطين خذوني معكم إلى لبن حزينة كوجه المجدلية إلى القباب الخضر والحجارات النبي 20 عاما وأنا أبحث عن أرض وعن هوية 70 عاما وأنا أبحث عن أرض وعن هوية أبحث عن بيت الذي هناك عن وطن المحاط بالأسلاك أبحث عن طفولتي وعن رفاق حارتي أبحث عن طفولتي وعن رفاق حارتي عن كتبي عن صوري عن كل ركن دافئ وكل مزهرية إلى فلسطين خذوني معكم يا أيها الرجال أريد أن أعيش أو أموت كالرجال أصبح عندي الآن بندقية قولوا لمن يسأل عن قضيتي بارودتي صارت هي الهوية أصبح عندي الآن بندقية.
Thank you, Asil. So very, very powerful and moving. The words are in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, so feel free to go in there and you can have a read of them. You can understand the power in those words and why. So very, very moving. Sorry, Samah, that's a very moving song.
No, forget Samah. I want to hear more from Asil. Another song.
We'll give her a chance to get ready another song. I wanted to ask you, Samah, about the fragmentation of Palestine and the challenges that has as an artist for collaboration. So, I mean, perhaps most of our people don't realize there's 5 or 6 different types of Palestinian. There's Israeli Palestinians, Jerusalem Palestinian, Gaza Palestinian, West Bank Palestinians, Palestinians that are refugees in Arab countries, and Palestinians like us outside.
Yeah. So it's look, the system that has separated the Palestinians, the Israeli systematic separation of the Palestinian and fragmentation of the Palestinian is there to ensure that we cannot collaborate on pretty much anything, let alone art. So Palestinians from the day of their birth are given an ID number. There's 5 different IDs that you can get if you're born under Israeli rule. And this ID number determines where you're allowed to live, what rights you can have, and pretty much everything that is important that can touch on your life. So it is through this ID system, which is really an apartheid system that keeps people separate and unequal, that Palestinians find it very difficult to reach out across the divide. Now, I've tried with Tales of a City by the Sea, like I've mentioned earlier. We wanted to open, because the story in itself is about, it's a love story between a Palestinian who lives in the US and a Palestinian in Gaza, and the impossibility of them coming together because of the siege and the separation. We thought it would be good to try to put on 3 productions at the same time, one in the West Bank, one in Gaza, and one in Australia, and all 3 productions in my dream world were to open on the same night. And so that's connecting all the artists that are working on these 3 productions and bridging the Palestinian art together and making a statement. Naive, but it was worth a try. What happened in reality was that the Gaza production was never able to go ahead because of the bombardment, the brutal bombardment of Gaza in 2014. And where we've lost people, we've lost infrastructure. It was impossible for them to go on and to put on the production. So they were out of the picture. In the West Bank, as we started rehearsing, the Aida refugee camp, it was the Al Rawad Cultural Center that was putting on the production. Abdel Fattah Abu Sroor, who's amazing, and a shout out to Al Rawad while we're at it. He was directing the play, but the area where the play is, the Jenin refugee camp, fell under curfew, extended curfew, and so our team there was not able to make it to rehearsal on time, and the production kept getting pushed back. And so they didn't open until almost 2 weeks after we did. And so for me, that was just a real life example of how, you could be at the starting point in the same, at the starting point in 3 different places, but you see the impact and the brutality of occupation and the way it stands in the way of putting on something, even if it's just artistic and if it's a love story and if it's theater. And really, when you're talking about a people under occupation, theater is such a privilege. It's the day-to-day life that they can barely survive. And yet you find these pockets of artists who use their art to ignite hope and to resist. And I'll borrow Abdel Fattah Abu Sroor's phrase, which became the slogan for our play, Tales of a City by the Sea. What we're putting on is beautiful resistance. And that is what Palestinian art is, beautiful resistance.
Yeah, beautiful resistance. Thank you so much, Samah. I'm going to go to Asil, but come back to you for another poem. And if you could share with our audience a genre of art that isn't your space, that something that you see that is beautiful resistance, and perhaps where they might be able to find those Palestinian artists. And then I'm going to get you to do the same thing, Asil, after you sing, and we go Samah's poem, and then back to you to share another artist and a different genre to yours.
Sorry, you mean like other artists that create
other
work.
Beautiful Palestinian resistance art. And it could be, for me, you know, one of the things that I so admire is women's embroidery, tatriz, you know, the traditional women thobe and the embroidery. I think you're wearing a piece now, but anyway, enough about me. Go Asil.
No, like one of the things that came immediately to my mind is one of my good friends, Mahmoud Sabani. He's a caricature artist, and he because of what he did, he stayed in, like, he was in jail for years because of his art and his resistance. And many like him, Palestinians in different places around the world also get troubled. I personally was was in prison just because of my own art and what we do. So it's like, even those things I admire, I don't know if I'm even able to share and talk about and not really getting into troubles while I'm doing as a Palestinian. But yes, I love the other art genre I really, really appreciate, which is, other than the embroidery, is the making of the instrument, the Palestinian instrument that we use every day, but now people are doing creating more for like home, to keep this culture. What we used to use before as tools and instruments at home now become kind of an art piece that no one wants to let go or use, scared that they will lose the meaningful and the culture and the heritage of those elements of, like, the ghirbal, or I don't know the word unfortunately in Arabic, but in English, but it's kind of a big wooden piece that normally people used to use as to help with making dough and like harvesting. Now they're just keeping all the old instruments and writing on it, or like keeping it as an art pieces at home, which is like keeping generations and generations. And the calligraphy, the Palestinian artist Bilal Khalid, for example, the one that recolored the photo that we use for Zoom today, for this lunch today, he is writing calligraphy of the Palestinian poets around the world, like literally traveling the world and creating murals, huge murals around Europe, telling the stories of Palestinians in siege. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Have you got a song ready, or should we go to Samah?
I always have a song ready, but let's go to Samah.
No, you sing, and then Samah's going to give us a poem.
Okay, so I will sing a song from Tales of a City by the Sea that I love so much, and I will also dedicate it to Uncle Munir. And I will finish with a song that you cried when I sang it for you, Nasser. But we start Tales of a City by the Sea by a song that is saying and like telling like speaking to a bird and telling him how lucky he is, because he can just live in peace, and how painful we live, how much pain we live in. نيالك مهدا بالك يا طير البال، حشت الورد لحالك وانا ضليت. نيالك مهدا بالك يا طير البوم، وشلت الورد لحالك وانا المحروم، وجرحي صح من يانا سيداويني، وجرح الهوى مر من السكاكيني، ونيالك مهدا بالك شو عبالك، وانا دويت وشلت الساعد لحالك. I will also send the lyrics to the captioning, so they added to the chat as well.
Fantastic. Samah.
That was beautiful, Asil. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings back great memories. So as far as genres, I love listening to music. May Barghouti, I've discovered her of recently, and she is just an amazing young Palestinian singer. I highly recommend anyone who wants to lose themselves in beautiful songs to look her up. May Barghouti. As far as cultural centers go, I am a big fan of Al Rawad Cultural Center. I think they call themselves Society now, Cultural Society.
In Aida camp.
In Aida refugee camp. So look that up. They do incredible work on an ongoing basis. And I think that's enough for the plugging of
Others.
Of others, although there are so many. It's Palestinian art has really taken off. There are so many incredible poets, writers, singers, musicians. So not mentioning their name, I apologize, but I don't think we have time for all of them.
Well, I think you encapsulated it. You encapsulated Samah when you said, it's beautiful resistance and the reality of the Palestinians in their steadfastness. Resistance is something that is, synonymous with Palestinians, and thus necessarily our art is reflecting that.
Absolutely. And so I think the poem I will share with you is called The Song of the Besieged. And it's a poem I wrote for beautiful resistance for Gaza. And I wrote it inspired by the idea that the UN has declared Gaza to be unlivable, which is a reality, a sad reality, but that the people of Gaza, through their March of Return, have declared that life beyond livability is inevitable. And I saw the March of Return as the people of Gaza rattling their cage and singing this song. And so this is the Song of the Besieged. The UN said Gaza was unlivable, but life beyond livability in Gaza is inevitable, like the rainfall and the winter storms. Ferocious, it grows like dandelions. It powers through like inexorable love, like an irresistible kiss, like the birthing of new life beyond the statistics of death. Life beyond livability in Gaza is inevitable like the sunrise, predictable like the movement of the tides, invincible like flowers in the desert, unassailable like a smile on the lips of the beloved, unequivocal like a word that splits bullets in halves, indomitable like a revolutionary march, unstoppable like the earth's rotation, formidable like a fist in the face of occupation, undeniable like destiny, like freedom from tyranny, like justice for the refugees. So listen carefully. 2 million captive hearts are beating off rhythm. There is no harmony beyond livability, only the inevitable. Beware the inevitable.
Wow. Thanks so much, Samah. Thank you. Samah, we're going to go to Asil, but there's a question in the chat there that says, how can we strengthen connections between Australia and Palestine, the cultural connections? Just as a question on notice.
That's
Asil,
a huge question. That is a huge question.
You're going to have 3 minutes to give it to us a bit later because we have to wrap up at 1 o'clock.
Okay, sure.
Asil, over to you, Rifti.
I would just say that there is a group on Facebook that's called Artists for Palestine that you are more than welcome to join. I started this when I first landed in Perth, and I just wanted more people to know about Palestine and gathered lots of artists, the Palestinian in diaspora around here and around the world. So I would just highly recommend if you want to connect, and you can see the people there. So that's one. I want to share another song from Tales of a City by the Sea. That's just another teasing. So when we have Tales, and I just keep asking Samah to put Tales again.
You are relentless, Asil. That's Palestinian resistance for you.
This play has just a lot long life, and I don't think we should just stop it now. But
Absolutely.
The song is called على طريق عيتيت قطعوا صلاتي, and that's a song that the very first time I met Nasser, when we spoke about Tales in his office, I sang for him, and that's the moment I just loved him so much, because it was really, for someone that didn't know me and meet me before, it was Samah's best a weapon to kind of say, Nasser, you have to support us to put Tales on the stage. So here we go. And I loved you since. And it's called على طريق غزة. We just shared it على طريق غزة. On the way to Gaza, they stopped my way. One is my beloved person, and one is my life. And I'll also share that with you. That's how it goes. على طريق غزة يمي قطعوا صلاتي وحي حبيب الروح يمي واحد حياتي ودعوني وراحوا يمي صوب الشجعي وقالوا شو هم من موت يمي تبقى القضية. نحن دقنا العذاب يمي دقنا حالته واللي نسي أرضه يمي يعدم حياته يعدم حياته.
Thanks, Cecile. And still works, still
you
makes
can
me
tell,
cry.
You can tell.
Still makes me cry. Samah, we've only got a few minutes to go. Perhaps you can close with, if you've got another poem ready, otherwise your answer to how we strengthen ties before we thank the Arts Front people for this platform.
Look, I don't have a short answer, but because Palestine does not have proper institutions to support artists, like countries that have ministries of culture and art and so on, just seek out Palestinian artists, give them a platform, celebrate them, and join Asil's group to start a discussion there. But it's a really good question, and one that deserves a little bit more thinking and a little bit more time. As much as I would love to share another poem with you, I would love to hear another song from Asil. So I'm yielding. No, please. I'm yielding my time. Asil, please, one more song for me. You've dedicated one to Nasser, one to Munir. What do I get? Nothing?
يا أعز أغلى وأطيب قلب علي للعالم معنا الحب ونشاوروا قالوا عليك طيب خليك كده من قلبي قريب وكفاية تكون إنسان في زمان في طيبة القلب بتتعيش.
Beautiful, thank you. I think that's a great way for us to finish. Thank you so very much to both Asil and Samah for joining us. Sari, we missed you and we love you and send you our love. To the Little Lunch people, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to launch Bourget. Make sure you bookmark it and go on to bourget.com.au and download that and check out the performances. Hopefully Samah will have another showing of them and Tales and her next play, God willing.
I would love Nasser to also encourage people to subscribe to our Bourget website so they can see when it's on. Unfortunately, we as working with the designers, like in the other side of the world, our time was in kind of 12 hours, and we will try to put it earlier, but we would love to share with you things that we are doing as well, and hopefully to invite you to the events we are doing within Refugee Week next month. And I would love to thank Sarah and Noam and the team of Little Lunch for really making. I know normally it's a half an hour, but I'm so honored to be joined by everybody here and see all the comments from people I know and I love, and that are huge supporters of us, like you, Paula, and everybody else that have joined today and sent us lots of love. We really love you so much, and I believe that Artfront and the team would really lead this kind of space into a better place.
Fantastic. Well, that's the role of art to help our society grow. Finally, a big thank you to our Auslan interpreters. Thank you so very much for your efforts. Great work. And to Norman Elliott and everybody else that we haven't mentioned, thank you. And thanks for joining us and joining us on this special day for Palestine. Thanks so much, Asil and Samah and everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.